Yo, it's Guido coming at you with a Tactics Talk. Welcome back and thanks for tuning in. So I got this replay from MC90 Clan ISOK and his 122 TM. It's an all-tier 8 battle. This medium is interesting. It came out not too long ago. I don't want to say it was last year. It might have been 2 years ago now. Hell, it could have been 3 years. I don't know. But it's a Chinese medium. Got panned a little bit. Has a very long reload. Very good turret. Good gun depression. Very long reload. Did I mention that? Terrible DPM, but a pretty good alpha. It is in the top 10 in most stats. I won't tell you it's one of the best, or maybe even top 5 or top 3. But it is a very solid tier 8 premium tank, so not bad at all. Although you've got to play it to its strengths, right? You want to be a hold down guy. It's not really a hover medium, even though it kind of looks like one, the Russian Chinese stuff. It's a little bit more of a careful tank. Although for me, because of the derpiness of the gun, I found myself using it much more forward than a lot of people. And MC's not going to do that. He sends me a note as well with this, and I actually looked at this one first because I was a little bit curious about a couple things before I just started looking at it and making a video. So he says, good example of so much of what I've been talking about. Says he doesn't know if it's exciting enough for a replay. I'll be honest, it's not an exciting game, but I think there's some interesting discussions here. He has a good game. It is a good game. And sometimes you have those. Not terribly exciting, but you just grind away and end up with a great result. Play the game you're in, not the game you think it should be. Okay, fair enough. We'll see how that works. Save your votes to the end. Go after the vulnerable enemy tanks. Agreed. Always go down beach and Overlord. In parentheses, he says, well, at some point, if the game demands it. I thought that was interesting. We'll talk about that when we get there. Cap for the win. Cheers. Always cap. The beach and the cap have their times in the game, and that goes back to the play the game you're in, not the one you want. We are on Overlord Dorf. We're just going to get going. He has it set up with a turbo. He's got vents and optics. Kind of an interesting decision there. He's really not going to bother with the rammer, even though this thing has quite a long reload and the rammer is fairly significant. But we'll see. If you are planning on playing it as not in worrying too much about the reload, then maybe those other pieces of equipment are going to do it for you. Well, let's see what he does. He's going to come up to the bull initially. I like this initial position. Taking a look at the setup, there's no artillery. There's a considerable number of TDs on each side. Looks like 4. A couple scouts, some heavies and mediums mixed in there. So a fairly standard thing. There aren't any artillery, so that is going to be helpful in terms of some of the places he can play or how long he can sit in places. Like if he backs down from a hold down spot, does he have to keep wiggle jiggle, or can he just hang out because he knows he already won't hit him? He's going to immediately come up here. He does have optics, and he's going to get out spotted right off the bat by the Hawk 30, which is not surprising. And he eats a shot. So this is a typical first spot that lights and mediums will go to, even sometimes heavies. The analog on the other side is very similar with this rock. Don't do it. I do it all the time myself. I think you need to not do it until your scouts kind of take some peeks and see what's going on. If you're going to be the first medium, if you're going to do it, come up just to where your turret's above and then back off and see if they spot you. I think that's the best idea right there. So this seems like a fairly standard initial position for a medium tank in this current setup. Would you agree? I would agree with myself. Thank you. Good job. All right. Notice, this is where I want to get into a little bit more of the state of the game, the way games are going now, this map a little bit in particular. If we look at what's happening, look how many tanks are in the southwest corner, either camping in the back because they're TDs, or heavies, a TD and a medium, and now a dead Alpine Tiger, or STA-1. That was all down in that corner. Passive, man. Is the passiveness accelerating, do you think? Am I seeing things? Am I imagining things? Am I not liking it just because I like to have a more aggressive and a bit more action, even though at the same time I don't want the spastic FPS kind of action? I want my cake and eat it too. I don't know, guys. I think it is true that we just have a much more passive, sit around, poke, and peek kind of gameplay right now. What are the reasons? Man, I'm not sure. Artie, we used to say a lot, was one of the reasons. Maybe it is still to some extent. Maybe it's the amount of TDs that are pretty good. That probably has a lot to do with not wanting to poke your head up. It's the other team hiding in places with all the angles and shot lanes known and guns aimed in to wherever somebody is going to peek and poke. And let me just talk about real quickly. I don't know what this Even 90 is doing. I don't know if you noticed it, but he is. If that 274 Alpha comes up just enough, he's gonna. There's no bushes between him and that guy. Not really, I don't think. Well, maybe there is. No. I think that guy's got a full view. Very odd. If you're going to be an Even 90, tuck up into those things. You don't want to shoot, but don't be standing where you've got a line of sight to you. You can disappear very quickly. So we're at 3 minutes, which kind of surprised me when the first time I watched this. And there's a couple guys dead on each side, so there has been some fighting. Oh, the Alpine Tiger platoon moored it out. Oh, man, that's good stuff. I didn't realize they were in a platoon the first time I watched. And MC is going to move down here. Now, this is not a bad idea, I guess. Not a lot going on in the middle. You don't have any. That was an unreal shot. Just by the way, we're going to see some RNG, just hand of RNG reach down and touch our friend MC in a couple of cases, because this gun is not known for its accuracy. There's really nobody pushing or getting aggressive in the middle, so he switches where he's fighting, and I think that's not a bad idea. He goes to find the KV-5 who is overextended. I'm assuming you noticed that on the mini-map right there. Comes over to try to take this guy. You can see how well overextended the KV-5 is. There is a little divot right there that he's sitting in, and we're going to try to take some shots. So we take a shot there. We've switched to heat because we want to go through a KV-5 turret. That seems reasonable to me. I think we spend a lot of time messing with this KV-5. Also, I would say from the micro positioning aspect, I think, MC, I would be up here fighting this guy. Now, I know that maybe gets you exposed to some of these other guys. In fact, there's a dude right there, T-34-3, maybe. But I also think with a little bit of altitude here, and it is a bit hard to use because they've put this little upslope here, that's why it's there, to keep you from just slaying stuff down here. You have to come a little higher to where the road is right about there. All right, so there's that upslope in case my mouse wasn't on the screen right there. But I think maybe investigating a little bit more altitude just to the right of your position might have helped out. I think he hits this shot, does he? Nope, misses it. All right, he does block some. There goes our Even 90, buddy. While I'm talking and we're watching this, just sort of watch the rest of the map. We're at 4 minutes. Kind of unusual to get this far without losing a bunch of buddies or the other team. Look at that ricochet. That was pretty cool. The shell just bounces up into the air right there. So, you know, I'm talking about how it's campy and passive on the one hand, and then I'm talking about how it's pretty amazing the game has lasted this long. And I think it's a case of it is campy and passive. That was, I don't know, he hit it. Awesome. It is campy and passive, but as soon as too many people peek and poke and get slaughtered by the guys hanging in the back, that's where you get the accelerated losses. And I think if you can get to this point in the game, and his team is starting to lose right here, if you can get to this point in the game with more or less this kind of team left on both sides where it's not a giant advantage, then it will turn into a slog. So I feel like the game is very campy and passive, but early on, if the steamroll starts going, then it can actually start to accelerate and you have a hard time coming back from it. But if the campy and passive is this peaky pokey thing, and you will notice if you look over on the east side over there, over on the east side, that they haven't done a lot of movement either. Nobody's gaining a lot of ground. And how much time have we spent futzing around with this one KV-5, right? He's not really doing much for his team. I think we hit this shot. Is that right? Yeah. He's not doing much for his team except for keeping a bunch of tanks busy and unable to do much of anything else. But at the same time, the other team wasn't able to take advantage of the... He's shooting HE. You know they're frustrated when they start shooting HE. I don't know. He hit it. You know, you never hit the shots you don't take, I guess. You never hit the shots you don't take. So they didn't take advantage, the other team, Purples, did not take advantage of the small advantage that they had early on. And, you know, when I watched this the first time, it just seemed like we spent an inordinate amount of time messing around. But the shots are there, And the rest of the game is kind of slogging away. There's really nothing else that he could be doing. For me, I'd have been up in the bowl, trying to work around that, trying to push in there, get an advantage, and figure that out. But there's a Progetto, a Hawk, the Su-101 back in the back. That's why nobody goes into the bowl right there generally, unless they have a lot of help, because you tend to get slaughtered trying to make any move, and back to the campy passiveness. So as soon as you pop your head up, you're getting popped, because everyone's got all the firing lanes locked down. And it just becomes this kind of game like this that's just this slog, right? It's just a slog. We're peeking and poking. We have what's not really known as a sniper trying to take shots from medium to long range. And I am not scoffing MC's gameplay right here. I'm just more talking about this is the match he's in and the state of the game and what we're seeing on a day-to-day basis with the way the game is played. The meta has metastasized around the various tanks and the number of TDs that are out there. The knowledge of all the maps that are now getting long in the tooth, and everyone knows where to go and where they can hide and what the angles are. So there's not a whole lot that's new under the sun. I don't know. He hit that too. That was poor ISU. I don't know why the ISU is there. I'm not. I'm talking about everybody knows the good spots to go and what to do. Rarely do I see anybody down there these days because it's kind of unsurvivable. The only reason he's able to do that really in this game is there's no Artie. If he was sitting over there with Artie, he'd have been bombarded 82,000 times by now. Maybe 82,007 if we get right down to it. So MC is just, again, being careful. He's only lost a few hit points early on to the Hawk 30, I believe it was. Sitting here very carefully trying to take out the ISU 152, who's hiding behind the landing craft right there. The Low is slowly grinding away. He's already lost one of his buddies. The Tiger is still camping back here. And yeah, so he's hiding behind this thing. How did this landing craft get that? That's not even a landing craft. How did it get that far up? Some trawler just beached itself before the invasion. I'm not really sure what's going on there. All right. T-103 is just hanging out back there. That's Skoda. There is some chatter between, I think, the Senlac and somebody else who's irritated. I think there's an IS-3A just sitting next to the Skoda. Neither one of them are doing much of anything, but now they don't have any eyes. The Senlac has fallen back. He's not really doing any aggressive spotting or scouting or seeing what's going on, although he is sitting up in that bush. At least he's watching the bull right there. That is something. And now we're at 9 minutes. 9 minutes and just slogging along, both at 5-5, neither team being over aggressive. There is some action now where the Indian Panzer and the Centurion is. So some of the tanks moved into that lower area, not the beach lower area, but the lower area in the east. And there's a bit of a scrap going on there. It looks like the purples are about to build an advantage. So and from there, we've got MC950 is going to go back up to the top. I think he notices that, although we did knock a couple tanks out. And now it's 7-6. The Lurva's... And what does the Lurva do? Right? It is fascinating to me how this happens. Centurion, I think, fell off the cliff. 103 kills the 274 Alpha. And now we're at 8-7. You spend so much of that time down there winning that flank, and then you just keep on pushing. There's no sense in looking at the rest of the map or what's going on. The Lurva, the King Tiger 2, and the 103. They're all going to push. Meanwhile, the TS5 is still sitting in the back. Although he has taken some hits. All right, the Hawk gets in and kills the Senlac. So now we're going to start getting a little more dynamic. This is the part that MC mentions when you get to the mid or late game where using your hit points and trying to figure out how to kill near deads. We've got a Hawk raging around. He's broken free. There's still that Skoda and IS-3A. I don't know what those two are doing over there. Are they platooned? They are. So I guess, I don't know what's been going on there. There's been a little bit of chatter from the Senlac. I think those two have been playing footsie or I don't know what right there. And if they have been goofing off and not really playing, it's only been their presence that's kind of kept that flank from falling, which is kind of interesting. And maybe even speaks to more passivity by the team that didn't notice those guys aren't doing anything, you know? All right, so now we got a Sinlac 432. This is pretty dangerous for MC because if those two get their crap together and jump on him, although there is a TS5 sitting there, he could be in trouble. But the 432 bails and goes down onto the beach. Meanwhile, check out the beach. What happened to our Lurva? Well, he's dead because he kept pushing into campers. He beat the guys right in front of him, good on him, and then continues to push into campers. Now, I wasn't jazzed about this maneuver right here. I don't know if MC got wind that the Skoda and the IS-3A were not helping, and maybe he just didn't want to go that way because there was no help, or he just thought I'd come down here and help push and take out the rest of what's down on the beach, or maybe he was just purely bloodlust. I'm going to go after the LT-432. Getting rid of the LT-432 or any of the scouts at this portion of the game is a good idea if you can do it without dying. So he's got the guy, and interestingly, the 432 sort of fought for a little while, and then he just, oops, I think he probably wishes he'd left. I was initially curious why you would push this guy because his reload is so fast. I think he's going to get a couple more hits before you kill him. I thought if you pulled back and reloaded and didn't allow him to have a free hit, that would have been better. But maybe you were pushing him because you thought the 103 would help you get in there and get him. So perhaps not as bad an idea as I thought. Although the Indian Panzer gets the T-103 a couple times. Someone else hit him. I think there's a Progetto back there too, as we're going to find out. So he eats some shot, but you do get the 432 out, and now we're going to push in. As of right now, what's going on up top is okay, and if you notice, our IS-3A buddy and our Skoda are now moving. So I don't know, I don't know what's going on with that. Takes a hit from the Progetto, keeps on trucking, going after the Indian Panzer. Thumps the Indian Panzer, kills him off with one shot. That's the beauty of a high alpha gun. It brings more near deads into the shutdown region, right? Into the shutdown zone. I think it's running, is it 400, right? Or is it more than 400? 400. So you're talking about guys with 400 or less hit points are easily in the shutdown zone, and even sometimes a little bit more with a high roll. That's pretty significant when most of your tier 8 mediums are running around with 200 or so, 240, stuff like that. Not 200, but usually 240. Something in that regime. For example, this Progetto is sitting at 243. A standard 240 alpha gun might not kill him. It is almost impossible. I won't do the math, but highly unlikely, if not impossible, for a 400 alpha gun to not kill this guy off. So it looks like he kind of knows that. He's going to bail out of there. Somehow the Skoda dies. I don't really understand what happened there. It's not like they were pushing into a whole bunch, but okay. I didn't pay attention. I guess the Su-101 and the Hawk 30 just had him for lunch over there. And maybe whatever else was still alive. MC sort of backs out, moves in here. And again, just super careful, right? More careful than I would be. I'd be pushing in there to try to put pressure on that Progetto and kill that guy off, knowing I could take a hit from him and just nukes him right there, good on him. And then I don't really know why we backed down so much. I don't think we were in danger of being hit by anything else, but there we go. A lot of people have a standard habit pattern of backing up immediately after shooting, no matter what's going on. I think that's a self-preservation thing. Look at that RNG. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can slow down your movement forward in certain situations that it might be important for you to keep pressing. I think to a large extent that is a discussion about what am I going to do next. If I see I'm pushing up, I've already determined that if I can kill the Progetto, I've paid attention to where the other two are, and I know based on the terrain I can keep pushing. So because people generally, and I have trouble with that as well, generally aren't able to go that many levels deep past what they're doing right at this moment, the reaction of let me just back out and think about it for a second, which is not a bad reaction overall. And we're going to end up capping this thing out and winning. He has 4 kills, 3,534 assists, and a really nice game. So took the whole 15 minutes to get through this thing, and it is a good example, I think, to some extent of the things he said. Play the game you're in, not the one you think it should be. All right. I probably would have stayed up in the middle a little bit more, but I didn't do 3,500 for the win on this one. Save your votes. I think he did a pretty dang good job of that. He did get a little aggressive going after the vulnerable guys and shutting down multiple tanks. Towards the end, we talked about a couple of those things I thought could have been different, but it worked out. Always go down the beach. Now, I don't know if I would have gone beach on that one, to be quite honest with you. I would have probably lean towards clearing the top out and then worrying about the guys trying to crawl off the beach. But as it was, he cleaned the beach up and then was able to get up to the top. I wonder if you'd had more trouble if the IS-3A and the Skoda had continued doing whatever the shenanigans were that they were doing. Maybe if the other team had been able to shut them down. But they appeared to be in the tanks, so I don't know if they were just laughing, sitting in the tanks, or having a chat, or what was going on. Or maybe they thought that was, no kidding, the best thing to be doing at the time. I couldn't tell you. I didn't look at their stats, so I don't know what their deal was over there. So that being said, if you did notice that and you decided to go play with people who appeared to be playing, that's hard to argue with. That is hard to argue with. Nicely done right there. Let me know what you guys think about that as far as the discussion on the overall campiness, passivity, the inability a lot of times to poke your head anywhere these days because everything is spotted, or everything, all the lines of fire are known and people are ready to just whack-a-mole the first guy that tries to be aggressive in any way. I don't know what the fix to that is, to be honest. I don't know if there is one. The only one I can think of, really, and I'm feeling more and more that this is probably the answer to some of this, at least, is more dynamic maps or new maps. Changing these maps slightly, putting a divot here, a divot there, move a bush here, put a rock here. Just change it up in some of these places, especially if you're looking at the heat map there, Wargaming, and you see where a lot of people are going. Just change it up, man. That would be awesome. It really would be. Especially if it was in a relatively fast and iterative fashion, or even if you had 3 or 4 maps of the same map that were just slightly different, so you never really knew exactly which one you got when you loaded in. That would be pretty cool. All right, that is all I've got. We will see you guys. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for supporting the channel.